The Zone Coverage Podcast Network.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Midwest Swing Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Berardino, along with co-founder of Zone Coverage, Tom Schreier, and Eric Foster at the controls. As always, guys, how you doing?
Doing well.
Doing great. Thanks, Mike.
Good. Well, we want to invite everyone, of course, as always, to subscribe to the Midwest Swing Podcast via iTunes, Spotify, or any of your favorite podcast apps. You're invited to leave a review, positive reviews only, and we feel free to check out earlier episodes, which go back into late August. We have very special guest for you this week, though, and that is former AAA Rochester hitting coach and former Major League outfielder for the Twins, man who should be well known to Twins listeners, Chad Allen. Chad, how are you?
I'm doing good, buddy. How y'all doing today?
We're doing great.
Good.
First of all, we'll get into some of the circumstances of your free agency here. A little confusing to those who follow the team closely, because everybody knows you've done great work and had your hands on so many of those, just about every one of those guys, part of the young core that has a lot of baseball interested. But one of the things we want to talk about right out of the chute, and it's important to let people know, is that former Fort Myers pitching coach now, Henry Bonilla, and his family are going through a tough time. His wife, Leslie, is battling breast cancer, and they have 3 children, and they have medical bills that can mount quickly. And there's a GoFundMe that I've put out there on Twitter and through Facebook, but my Twitter is @Mike Berardino. And Chad, you know Henry very well, having worked alongside him and been down in Fort Myers all those years.
Yes, sir.
How's he holding up? How's that family doing?
Well, the amazing thing yesterday I went on Facebook and, obviously Henry's going through some tough times, but, he put a quote on as far as him just looking forward and staying positive. And to me, that's, obviously this guy and his family are going through some really tough times, and obviously everybody in the baseball community, the Twins community, and everybody, that knows Henry are obviously concerned and praying for him. But the man is just trying to stay positive. And, I think, obviously, anybody out there that knows Henry Bonilla knows that he's a great man. We came up together, I guess, in 2012. We were both hired, I guess, in the same year with the Twins, and got to work with him in instructional league a couple of years, and then obviously in spring training. But he was a guy that when you got to the meetings in the morning, he was always smiling, he was always joking, and when he was around the players, he was obviously a positive man, and that's what he's trying to do right now with his family, is just stay positive and believe that, that his wife's going to come out of this. And, I think as a baseball community and as the Twins organization, God willing, we can all help support him through this, because he's like I say, he's a great man. His family's, just a humble family, and I continue to pray for him.
That's very well said, Chad. One of the things that adds to the burden here, I'm sure, is that Henry, along with Ivan Arteaga and yourself, and Perry Castellano and several others at the end of the season, were not retained. And I don't know, how that all works as far as Cobra Insurance and what can be carried over, or what the organization's doing for everybody with insurance. Is there any light you can shed on that? Or just, it's never easy to change employers, but for what he's going through, that must add to the burden?
Well, I am pretty sure, partner, that our contracts with the Twins end on December 1st. So we are still under the medical insurance and insurance of the Twins until the 1st of December. Now, after that, I am not 100% sure what's going to go on with, with Henry, I think pretty much, obviously, I'm probably going to be out on my own, which, God willing, we're all going to get jobs, and he'll be right back under his insurance. But, I'm just praying to God for his sake that, the Players Association and the community of baseball is really strong. And I know that, programs like BATS and, just the baseball community in itself, I'm sure, God willing, will help out, Henry as much as they can. We've all, have been around people who have gone through tough times like this. And I know for a lot of instances, a lot of people have helped out, and I'm sure that, God willing, baseball is going to help out Henry as much as they can.
I'm talking about Henry Bonilla, who spent 14 total seasons with the Twins, 7 as a pitcher, 7 as a coach, and a well-known quantity to every pitcher and most players who came up through the system at a variety of levels. So I'm talking about him and the struggle of his wife, her courageous fight, Leslie, fighting against breast cancer. And there's a GoFundMe that is up and running, and any Twins fans, any listeners who are listening to Midwest Swing Pod, we invite you to take a look at that and be as generous as you can. So let's talk about what you were told from your perspective at the end of your 6 years, 3 at AA, 3 at AAA. And again, you had your hands and your imprint and your hard work lead to a lot of guys make it through the system and reach the major leagues and establish themselves. And you even interviewed to be the major league hitting coach at one time after 2016, before James Rousing got the job. What was the reasoning given to you for that change?
To be honest with you, it was the reasoning was just they were going a different direction, and it's obviously it was a tough thing to swallow. The Twins obviously drafted me out of college. I got my first opportunity to play in the minor leagues and my first opportunity to play in the big leagues with the Twins. And then several years later, they gave me the opportunity to be a coach. I still love the organization. I still look at it as them giving me the opportunity not only to start my professional career, but also my coaching career. So, I have nothing but a lot of thanks for the Twins. It's unfortunate that, that I'm no longer a Twin. But as a player, it hurt me when I left the Twins, but my career went on. And God willing, my career keeps going as a coach. But I wish the Twins the best of luck. I have a lot of great relationships with a lot of the players and coaches in the organization. And, you have the Byron Buxtons, the Max Keplers, Sano's, Polanco's, all those guys that I came up with my first year. And, I love those guys like they're a son, and wish them the best of luck, and will always be behind them.
Talking with Chad Allen, former Major League outfielder and Twins minor league hitting coach over the last 6 years, and at AA and AAA. And I guess maybe the question, as you look back on your Twins time as a coach, what are a couple of the things you're proudest of, or a couple of your favorite moments? Because I know you're a high energy guy, and you try to connect with these guys, and you did connect with these guys. When you think back, what are you proudest of, or maybe something that was said to you by one of those players that really sticks in your mind now?
Well, to me, it's not really about I would say, the guys getting to the big leagues and some of the guys having, some good years in the big leagues. To me, it's about just the relationship that I built with those guys and the trust that I built with those guys. I think that was more important to me than numbers or, awards or anything like that. Is just being able to connect with them, not only on the field, but off the field. And my mentor, Rudy Jaramillo, was my favorite hitting coach of all time. And, the first thing that he did for me as a player when I came to Texas was, get to know me as a player and gain my trust in what he was teaching me. And so that was one thing that he told me as a coach is, not only do you have to, gain their trust as a coach, but you have to gain their trust as who you are as a human being. And so that to me was important for me in my, coaching career with the Twins is to really try to get on the same page as the players and to ask them, what was important to them, how they felt when it came to hitting. And if I introduced something, new to them, or we tried to make a change in whatever they were doing, it was important for me to them to have, a voice, and for them to say, I don't feel this doesn't feel right. And so for me, I guess you could say the most important thing to me, and the thing that I got from all those guys, was just the relationships I built with them. Is it nice that they made it all to the big leagues? Absolutely. Those guys have a ton of talent. I believe they're going to be cornerstones for the Twins for a long time. But again, the important thing to me was the relationships with them, and not necessarily, their accolades on the field.
Now, obviously, a lot of names to run by you to get your quick thoughts on, but one of the names I would like to delve into to see where you think things should go from here, or can go from here, where it was in August, is Byron Buxton. And you had Byron at Double-A as he made it to the majors for the first time, and I believe you had him at some point in each of the last 3 years as well, a little quick burst down at Triple-A. But where you had him in August, there was some concern, some confusion over the state of his wrist, and it seemed like the numbers were trending well. Whatever changes you guys made there in August this year, it took, and then he was not called up for September, ostensibly because he was still not 100%. Did you feel you had him was he physically 100%, or was he working through something in that wrist still at the end of your Rochester season?
From what I got from Buck at the end of the year, he was extremely close to 100%. And he played, if I'm not mistaken, probably about maybe 10 days, before the end of the year in a row, and was swinging the bat pretty dadgum well. What went on behind closed doors, I have no idea. I don't know. Obviously, the conversations they had, and the reasoning for him not going up in September, I honestly don't know that. But I know that Buck is by far, hands down, got the most talent that I've seen of anyone in the minor leagues. And I'm not just talking about the Twins. I'm talking about every single player that I've seen in the minor leagues. His tools are just off the charts, really good. So, I think Buck's maybe kind of on a little bit of the same path as a Torii Hunter, and coming up with Torii and playing with Torii, as a young player, he struggled a little bit, and then got to the big leagues, I guess at maybe 20 or maybe even 21. I'm not sure exactly how old he was, but, it took Torii till, I guess it was maybe 2000 to really come out of his shell and become the player that, that he was. And I think Buck's going to be, whenever Buck figures out, the confidence that he has in himself and keeps it every day, and goes out there and has the same mental approach and just the same confidence every single day in the big leagues, he's going to be a star.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of talked to scouts about that who keep waiting for that magic click to happen. They've seen it in bursts, some glimpses, and some fine September in 2016 and a fine second half in 2017. And then this year was just so much about the injuries. But everyone will attest, to those in the media, we can all attest this is an accountable, dedicated, hardworking guy. You can't. I'm sure you guys had to chase him out of that batting cage many times for just taking too many swings. But one thing that's always nagged me, and we all would like to see Byron Buxton succeed, is the leg kick alone seemed like a thing where he's got the leg kick. No, he doesn't have the leg kick. It seemed like there was a lot of tinkering, maybe dictated from on high. How much, I mean, maybe what would you do going forward with him? Maybe would the best thing be just let him, like you say, find it himself. Just everybody hands off and just watch and support and let it happen. Would that, do you think there's been too many tweaks along the way mechanically?
Well, to be honest with you, partner, I think Buck has a heart of gold. And when you ask Byron Buxton to do something, he's gonna put forth 100% effort, and that's just who he is. And so I think when you introduce something to Buck's gonna try it, and he is gonna work his tail off and try to do it to the best of his ability, because that's who he is. He just doesn't really back down to much. And I think Buxton has so much talent and can do so many things well, even though mechanically it may not be flawless. And he gets away with so much because he's so talented. But I think the main thing for Buck is whatever feels comfortable to Byron Buxton. Whether it's a leg kick, whether it's conventional, whether it's a toe tap, whatever it is that Byron Buxton wants to do, if he has confidence in who he is and goes up to the plate, carefree and confident, we've all seen in September and, glimpses of it, last year, in the past couple of years, that when that kid's smiling and having fun on the baseball field, like I say, partner, I've never seen anything like it. And he's done things on the baseball field that everybody just, their mouth just drops and all. So I would say the most important thing for him is not necessarily what type of leg kick or conventional or whatever you want to say mechanically issue that he wants to go with, but whatever he does go with, that he has confidence in it and that he sticks with it. And I think that's one thing that's been tough on Buck is obviously Buck hasn't had the opportunity in the little over 3 years that he's been in the big leagues, number one, to stay healthy, and number two, to get consistent 500 at bats in the big leagues. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I got to learn in my short career in the big leagues was when you go to the plate and you have the same mentality at the plate every single day in the big leagues, you learn from your mistakes. And I think the biggest thing that anybody in sports will tell you is you have to learn from your mistakes. And I think that's the one thing that Buck really hasn't had the ability to, I'm not necessarily saying do, but he's never had the opportunity to play a full year in the big leagues because of injuries. And it's unfortunate. But I think if he were to be able to go out and get 500 at bats and stay with the same mechanical approach, mechanics as far as a leg kick or whatever it is he wants to do, if he were to stick with that program throughout the year, I think by, a certain point in the year, it's going to click for him. And whenever it does, it's going to be, I'm going to watch. I'll be honest with you, I'm going to watch him because there's very few guys that in the minor leagues, when they went to the plate that you can say, oh my goodness, this, I'm going to watch this. But he's one of those guys. And so I think it's just a matter of Buck learning who Buck is. And, I think he's, like I say, when he was carefree and confident in the little bit of time that I got to see him in the minor leagues, and in that 2016 September when I went up and watched him in September, it was special. I mean, it was really, really special. And I just pray to God for him and the Twins, to be honest with you, that he gets back to that, because, there's nothing more than I want to see than those guys succeed. And, I'd love to see the Twins back in the playoffs. They're, like I say, they've done a lot for me. They started my coaching career. So I want nothing but the best for those kids in that organization. And Buck's going to be a leader for that team soon. And God willing, I hope it's for his sake. I hope it's this year. And, those kids behind him, the Max Keplers and the Sano's and the Polanco's and the Barrioses, they're a family. And, those guys in the minor leagues they dominated the minor leagues. And with those guys that, they push each other, and make each other better. So, I look forward to watching those guys in the next few years, God willing, dominate that, that AL Central and get the playoffs.
Former Twins outfielder, former Twins minor league hitting coach at AA and AAA. And Chad, you made a great point that so much still ahead for Buxton. It's so easy to forget that this man won't turn 25 until December. So he's still got a long way to go. Yeah. And you mentioned the lack of never had more than 462 at-bats in a season. Plate appearances, it's gone 138, 331, 511 at plate appearances in 2017, and then back down to 94. So, yes, just a consistent run. Thanks for shedding light on that. I think we'll all be watching that. I want to ask you a more broad question about philosophy. We're seeing, throughout this, anytime you turn on a game, you see it. But now the postseason, a lot of talk about, and you're seeing the two teams that, especially the Dodgers, seem to have a one-swing-fits-all mentality in terms of aggressive launch angle, hyper attentive to exit velocity, and I wonder if, in the general term, are you on board with that? With so many hitters of all statures pretty much having the interest in elevating that ball and swinging for the fences, essentially, let strikeouts be damned, or is something being lost, something being missed in terms of the all-around, all-fields situational hitter?
Well, you can't really cookie cut it down to, in my opinion, you can't teach every single hitter the same way, in my opinion. I think every guy has their talent. Every guy has an ability to do certain things very, very well. I think certain guys have the ability to maybe elevate the baseball and try to get it in the air, and that makes them really good. You look at the MVP this year, probably of the National League, is Yelich. And, they talk to him in the playoffs on TV, and his mind thought is, I want to hit the ball hard on the ground. And then you have other guys who think, okay, I want to elevate the baseball. I want to get it in the air. So I think it's, in my opinion, it's best to talk to the actual hitter himself and say, what makes this guy go? What mentality can we put in him to make him the best player we can be? And, I think, in my opinion, the two-strike approach and using the middle to right center to right field part of the field, I'm not saying is a lost art, but I think it's something that can be maybe, hopefully, God willing, a little more instilled into the game. When I came up with the Twins, Tom Kelly, The first thing we learned in instructional league was to learn to hit with 2 strikes and learn to drive the ball to right field. And that made us a better hitter because we learned to let the ball travel, and we learned not to pull off the ball and roll over. And, everybody strikes out. I mean, it's the game. It's going to happen. Pitchers are really good. But I think there's ways to combat it, and there's ways to, give yourself the best opportunity that you can to put the ball in play. I'm not saying that the game has gone away from that. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I think there's certain guys in the game that we can possibly help to get a little better in those situations and, help them succeed at a higher level. But again, the launch angle is something to where, yes, that is an optimal, I guess you could say optimal range of where you want to be for you to hit the ball the hardest and give you a lot of production. And that is something that, we need to teach a guy to get his swing, at the best rate that we can get him. But I think at the same time, we can also teach him to be a better 2-strike hitter and be able to hypothetically get a guy over from second base with less than 2 outs. And drive a guy in from third base without trying to pull the ball and hit it out of the yard. We've seen in the playoffs, throughout the playoffs, specifically last night, you look at J.D. Martinez, one of the best hitters in baseball, by far. And the man knows how to use the opposite side of the field and in the middle of the field. And that's why he had 100 and I don't even know what it was, let's say 125, 130 RBIs this year. But that's who J.D. Martinez is. And, you can't, I'm not saying that everyone needs to hit like J.D. Martinez, but I think everyone can learn pieces of J.D. Martinez's game or, Miguel Cabrera's game, Barry Bonds' game. I think there's aspects of every single person's game that hitters can learn to use in specific situations to give them the best opportunity to succeed. And, right now the home run and driving the baseball, in the gap and hitting doubles is a big thing. And I'm not disagreeing with that whatsoever. But at the same time, I still truly believe that guys need to learn to hit with 2 strikes and learn to use the middle of the field to the right center part of the field and to drive the ball and to stay on those sliders and off-speed pitches that are away. So, I think there's aspects of the old school way of teaching that are great, and there's aspects of this kind of launch angle new era way of teaching that are great too. I mean, it's phenomenal. The numbers that they put out there for the guys are great, and it's a great teaching tool. But I think we can't forget at the same time that, there's parts of the old school way of teaching that are really good, really, really good. And, Tom Kelly was a tough man to play for, very, very tough man to play for. But at the same time, he taught us discipline, and he taught us to use, the opposite field and to play the game the right way. And I think that's something that, still needs to be in the game.
The old saying, I believe, attributed to Yogi Berra, like so many things, was what you can't think and hit at the same time. I wonder, and obviously you do have to think some because, like you just sketched out, there are situations. But with all the analytics in the game today and all the information and the heat maps, and everybody's got an iPad at every level, all the way down to the low minors, do you think the hitters today coming up, not necessarily the ones who are in the majors, but the hitters who are coming up through the high levels of the minors, are they smarter hitters than the previous generations, or are they just more confused?
I can't say that about all of them, but I think there's some guys in the minor leagues. When I was in AAA the last couple of years, I knew there were guys who could handle the information. They would come to me and ask me, okay, what's his percentage on 2-2? What's his strikeout pitch? And then there were other guys who would go up there and say, Chad, what's this fastball do? And what's the strikeout pitch? And all they would do was stick with, what they wanted to think, what their mentality was when they went to the plate. And I think there's positives in both of those. I was a guy who went up to the plate and I had the same routine. I had the same approach every single at bat, pretty much 90% of the time. Now, if I knew a guy was going to change on me, yeah, I would have to change my, approach or whatever it may be. But I think the most important thing for any hitter in the game, when you go to the plate, the numbers that are given to you, to me, are out the door. Hitting is extremely, extremely hard. And the more you think when you're at the plate, the worse off you are. So, I think the best hitters I've ever seen in my life are going up there just confident, don't really care what the pitcher's going to throw, and they're just flat out saying, I'm just going to hit you. And that to me is way more important for a hitter to be confident in what he's doing than for him to be thinking about, okay, I need to take this fastball inside and I need to hit it to left center field, or this guy might throw me a 2-2 slider, or whatever it may be. The most important thing to me is is how the hitter feels. Is he confident in what he's doing? Is he confident in his game plan? And then him going up there and executing. Because if you're thinking when you go to the plate, you're done. I mean, the pitchers in the big leagues now are just too good, and you can't go up there and be thinking about a certain, this guy might throw me a 2-2 slider or a 2-2 changeup. You can't think that. So for me, it's to me, just a hitter's mentality of going up there and just being consistent in who they are and what their approach is at the plate. And if they stick with that, in my opinion, they're going to succeed.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking again with Chad Allen. Thank you, Chad, for everything you've done for the Twins over the years. Twins fans should be appreciative. I know the hitters are appreciative, and we'll all be watching to see what your next challenge is and the next chapter of your career.
Yes, sir.
You're just getting started as a hitting coach, paying back to the game.
God willing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking time with us today, and stay in touch. And you've been listening to Midwest Swing Podcast. We're part of the Zone Coverage Podcast Network. You can subscribe via iTunes, Spotify, or any of your favorite podcast apps. We'll be back next week with a fresh episode, a new topic, but still baseball related and Twin Cities related. Thanks again for listening. This is Mike Berardino for Tom Schreier and Eric Foster at the controls. Midwest Swing Pod. We'll talk to you next week.